What up? Wade here. Welcome back to the Wade Alter Show. So today what we're going to talk about is building that gun to the head motivation, that extreme sense of urgency. Because if there's anything I've noticed between people that are killing it, the A players, and the guys just sitting on the sidelines, it's that extreme sense of urgency. From the most successful people ever, like the Bill Gates, there's stories about him saying he didn't take a day off in his 20s until he turned 31. And the Elon Musks of the world are basically almost killing themselves. They're working so hard, even Gary Vaynerchuk. And that sort of mold compared to the people that are stuck, compared to the people that are sitting on the sidelines, settling for mediocrity, settling for complacency, good is the enemy of the great, safety man syndrome, as I like to call it. And getting to that step, getting to that stage where you're able to say, okay, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make myself a success. And where this is inspired from is, if you've heard the last couple podcasts, I've been basically holed up here, finishing up the outlines for the completely revamped version of the Baseline to Success course, which if you're not familiar with, it's basically how to go from stuck to unstuck. It's a premium program where it's a coaching experience where you're working directly with a coach. You have coaching calls where you're working on different exercises, and it's a 10-step process where at each step of the way, you have exercises to do. You work with your coach to make sure you're doing them and implementing the material as effectively as possible. And then you go off and you just build that momentum and you go through the different phases to go from stuck to unstuck. And I love it because it's really applicable to anything, whether that's starting a new business, whether that's getting your first client in your consulting agency, whether that's approaching that girl, or if you have a special girl and how to take it to the next stage, or whether it's just little things like how to not hit the snooze button in the morning or read more. You can apply the same process to the micro scale as well as a very, very macro scale. Finding your first mentor, reaching out and building a social circle. And so I'm just completely wrapped up in this world, and it's been a lot of fun. And my new favorite level, they all kind of become my favorite level as I go through them, but level 8, which is that motivation, building that gun to the head motivation. And so that's really what inspired today's topic here. So what is that gun to head motivation? Well, the example I like using is I had a client recently who came to me because he wanted to get out of his career. He was in the same career for 13, 14 years, something like that. And he was so invested that he was having, even though he had his MBA, he was having a really tough time getting out of the business he was working for, a company that he was working for, and trying to find a new job. And so I think I've used this example in other contexts before, but I was like, okay, what are you doing to find that new job? And he said, you know what, I just signed up for some improv classes, and I'm going to be doing some, networking events. And I asked him, well, what about applying to jobs? What about getting interviews? What about going in? And so we talked for a few sessions, and there was some progress being made there. And I had to basically bring out the gun to the head mindset, where I said, okay, let's just say this happened a couple days ago. Right now we're in the middle of March. I said, you have until April 1st, that first day of April. We got 2 weeks here. And let's say you have this hypothetical gun to your head. What would you do? What would it take for you to get a job? And I said, I'm going to pull this trigger if you don't have an interview at least, but more likely a job within 2 weeks. Now, of course, 13 years of experience, there's going to be a longer process, probably multiple interviews. But I'm just saying, for a hypothetical situation here, what would you actually do? Would you just settle for handing off a resume with a little, bullet, like sort of shotgun approach cover letter? Or are you going to spend a few hours researching this company and directly translating your experience and the skills you have, so you explicitly write it out on this cover letter so they know, hey, this is the exact guy that I need? On top of that, are you just going to settle for, I shot off the application, that's it? Or are you going to go in to the location, to the office, and say, hey, did you receive this? Go through the secretary and say, hey, I just need to talk to him. I just want to shake his hand really fast. Or follow him around and go meet him on his way as he's ordering a coffee at Starbucks. What is it going to take if literally your life is on the line? And so another way that I like illustrating this is, if you actually look at the average population, they have no sense of urgency whatsoever. They're stuck. They prefer security. They prefer staying in their comfort zone, and they don't want to deal with fear. They run away from fear. And it's just this habitual stuff. There's nothing wrong with it. Like I said, if you look at it from the baseline perspective, this is level 8. Before that, we're working on limiting beliefs, self-sabotage techniques. We're working on removing, negative self-talk and starting to build momentum before you get to this point. So if you're saying, yeah, I get it, like, how do I jump in? We'll get to that in a second here. But just that sense of urgency is just completely gone in the average person. And again, I think it really comes down to that. It's that not even really settling for complacency. It's just choosing security over adventure, choosing security over taking a risk and really taking your life to the next level. That's what the safety man syndrome is all about. But there is one time where they actually get that gun to the head mindset, and that's when themselves or a family member gets sick. And if you've ever had this with a family member or even yourself, you know that you will do whatever it takes to figure out how to cure the illness. If it's cancer or something, some sort of crazy terminal illness, you'll spend whatever it costs. Talk to any expert you can find on it because it's a life or death situation. You'll go travel to the other side of the country, the other side of the world. I've had people with certain injuries. I've heard they traveled all the way to Australia to try to get some new, innovative, crazy experimental technique done to see if that's going to fix the problem. They've read every book on it. They're probably more of an expert than the actual doctor is. They've researched everything they can on the topic to get it so, because like I said, it's like either you get this solved or your life is cut short. That's the level of urgency that most successful people had. The Bill Gates, the Elon Musks, the people it doesn't even need to be these crazy multi-billionaire sort of people, just the average everyday person that wants to have that high level success. I don't care if it's success with women. I don't care if it's success in the gym, in your research and YouTube videos, trying to find the perfect form, going often, every moment of every day, stuck in that period of immersion, that micro focus on the one thing that you need to be focused. I call it your primary focus, and really dialing into that and saying, I'm going to do whatever it takes, block everything else out and say, boom, let's go, let's rock this. And so that's that level of motivation that you need to have. That's that gun to the head mindset that you need to have. And so how do we get it? There's a couple different ways to dive into motivation. The way I used to talk about it, it was boom, add in the jet fuel. And what it is it comes down to there's two poles of motivation. We have moving towards and we have moving away. Some people are more moving towards. And so if you say, hey, why do I want to be financially successful? Some people will say, you know what? It's because I just want to offer more value to more people. I'll be able to contribute beyond myself. I'll be able to help my girlfriend out. I'll be able to help my family out. I'll be able to prove to myself that I can be a success in an area that was really tough for me to deal with. I can help my family. I can have a better health because I'll eat organically, and I'll get a personal trainer, and I'll have a better lifestyle so I won't have as much stress. And they're looking at the positive, the moving towards aspect of motivation. Some other people have the opposite. They have a moving way. So when you ask, why do you want to be financially successful? They say, you know what? I just never want to be poor again. I grew up poor and I could never go back to that. The stress that I had there, I will never put myself in that situation again. I just look at that situation. It's so disgusting to me. And I'll do literally whatever it takes to not be in that situation ever again. And so that's the kind of moving away from energy. And ideally, you really just want both. And you want to have just stacking on, I call it stacking on the success. You're stacking on more and more reasons for the benefit of why you want to achieve what you want. And on the other hand, lighting that fire under your ass. And so it's not good to stay in that light the fire under your ass aspect, but it's good if you're in that stuck situation or you feel that there is more out there for you to give you the kick. You got to light the fire. And a lot of that comes from that negative aspect of motivation. You got to have the positive there to have something to shoot towards. And that's what basically adds the jet fuel from behind. It's lighting that fire in your eyes. You're like, I got to fucking go. I'm going to do this shit, shoot the gun and rock and roll. And so to really crank things up, let's bring in another mindset, which I'm going to call the addiction blaster mindset. And so what this is let's say you're addicted to some drug. Let's say not you. Let's say somebody else is addicted to some drug. Let's say it's heroin. And the thing is, it's an incredibly addicting drug. You feel like shit when you're off of it. I wouldn't know, but just from hearing things about it and seeing case studies on this, is that, the thing is when you're making that decision to shoot up, you just want to cure the current feeling of shit, that feeling of like, I just feel like crap. And I know I'm going to feel good for a few seconds after this. And you're thinking maybe even tomorrow you might have a little bit of long-term focus saying, you know what, I'm not going to be horrible tomorrow. I'm not going to be that much worse off if I do this. I'm just going to feel better actually than I do right now. But what you don't think about is that year from now, that 5 years from now, that 10 years from now, if you stay on this path, if you keep making decisions in this way, you're going to be that junkie on the street corner, sitting in your own piss, going, just like they're homeless, and just your life is a piece of shit. Your life is completely fucked. And so this is the same mindset you need to have. Or it's not even the same mindset. You need to just look at your life and the current trajectory you're on. Do you want to stay on that current path? What if you make another decision to not take action? What if you make another decision to not take that risk, to step ahead, to jump out of the safety man syndrome and light that fire under your ass to go do what you want to do, whether that's getting your dating life handled, whether that's starting that business, whether that's sitting behind the computer screen and going out and talking to people to get that client, to network, to make more friends, friends, to get a mentor, instead of just saying, oh man, I'll just shoot off another email, stuff. Like, get on the phone, go door to door, do whatever it takes. The thing that you're feeling, that little bit of, oh man, that would be a little bit uncomfortable, that's the thing that's going to lead to the most growth. And to do that, you got to look at the opposite of what your life would look like if you stayed static 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when you're sitting there on the couch and you're old and you're poor and you're just watching TV or watching the news, living vicariously through the TV or just through Netflix, and you're just getting addicted to watching more and more Netflix, season after season, episode after episode, lonely because you don't even leave the house, and you just say, hey, I just try to every so often do Tinder or some shit like that, but oh man, I don't really care. I'm too afraid to actually go out and do it. Or, oh yeah, just regular old job, doing the same old shit with that boss who doesn't respect you, and you're getting those little 2% merit-based raises every so often. Boom. Look at your life 10, 20 years from now. Do you want to be on that path? Have that image in your mind, have that vision in your mind, and say, if this is not the path I want, you basically need to crank up the pain there enough where that risk, looking at that's more risky than you taking the short-term risk now. So that's what's really going on there when you're cranking up the pain, getting that gun to the head mindset, and then modeling people that have it. Like I said, the most successful people, even looking at the average person who's in that life or death situation and thinking to yourself, what would it actually happen if, like I said, 30 days from now, I needed to have that first client? What would it take for me? What would I do? How much effort would I put in to how I sculpt that email, the research that I do for them? And what you'll notice is as you start taking action, as you start seeing progress, that's actually what creates motivation. So we've done it here through reframes, through some mental gymnastics. But what happens too often is people are waiting for the motivation. They're waiting for the passion. They're waiting for the enthusiasm. And what you need to realize is that happens after you get started, because motivation comes in when you see a connection from what you're doing today to the end result that you want. If you don't see a connection, that's why they call it the dead end job, because it's a dead end. You don't see how it connects to the thing you want in the future. But the only way to see that really clearly is through, there's a different step process. Like I said, I got 100 pages of outlines that could explain this in more detail. But really what it is just jumping in and getting started, because then all of a sudden you get the ball rolling, you start seeing some momentum there, and you go, oh my God, I actually see how I could actually achieve this. And then you start getting more motivated and you jump into that positive spiral, that positive feedback loop where more success gives you more confidence, and that extra confidence gives you even more confidence to take on bigger risks, and those bigger risks lead to bigger successes, leading to the ultimate success in achieving what you want. So if you want more success, it all comes down to building that extreme sense of urgency, adding the jet fuel, that gun to the head mindset of motivation. So go there and do that up. And by the way, if you're new to the podcast, I want to say welcome. I can't believe we had more downloads for the last podcast than any other before that by like a lot. And I'm surprised at how well it was received. I want to say thanks for all the feedback that I got in emails and text messages and Facebook messages and things like that. If you haven't heard of what the Baseline is, this is our premium course. We call it a coaching experience where you work hand in hand with a coach. We only have a certain number of people go through it at any one time. It hasn't been open since last August, which is over 9 months ago. And so if you're interested, I'd highly suggest you going over to 3ibaseline.com. That's the number 3, the letter I, baseline.com, and joining the early bird list. The goal is to launch it the first or second week of April. Like I said, I'm just finishing up level 10. We're getting ready to record, and then we're going to be launching it and only accepting a certain amount of people through. So if this sounds like something you want, if you want to build that gun to the head motivation and take it even a step further and really having somebody help you take action, get ready. I'm incredibly excited about it. We've overhauled the entire course with the feedback from the last 50 guys that went through, and it's just going to be an epic event. So make sure to get on that. Again, 3ibaseline.com. And we're going to keep on rocking here in the next couple of weeks. More podcasts coming out, more videos. So it's just good to have you along for the ride. 2017 has already been an amazing year, and I hope the same for you. And I hope to help you out with more and more podcasts just like this. As always, enjoy.